Hey guys, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our whole group read aloud for Friday. And this is the attack on Washington, D.C. And you may have already read this, and that's okay. We're going to read it again. So it's called The Attack on Washington, D.C. The title of today's chapter is The Attack on Washington, D.C. D.C. in the name Washington, D.C. stands for District of Columbia. Say District of Columbia with me. District of Columbia. The full name is Washington District of Columbia. The city is the capital of the United States, where many important buildings and people connected to the U.S. government are found. So Washington, D.C. really is just a shortened version for Washington District of Columbia. And you can see a picture of Washington building. Please turn to the table of contents, find the chapter, and then turn to the first page of the chapter. And before we get started, let's preview the vocabulary. So we have the capital, which is what was on the picture that I was just showing you. You have the capital, and then support the troops. It just means that you're offering support for people that are fighting for us. Defeat, when you defeat someone, you beat them, you win. Panic means that you're kind of freaking out. You're in a state of panic. You're scared, worried, and just starting to freak out. Flee means to leave, to run away, and you can see the little rabbits running away. Flee means to just get away. And this is like a trunk. You could think of like the trunk of your car, but in this instant, it means like a little trunk, something that you can open and get inside. Let's read today's story together. Okay, so I'm going to try to exit this screen, and we're going to see how this works and open up to read aloud. Okay, here we are. So Chapter 5, The Attack on Washington, D.C. What I want you to do is I just want you to follow along with me. The Attack on Washington, D.C. In August of 1814, President Madison was upset. 2 years had passed. The war was still going on. The U.S. Army had won some battles, and it had lost some battles. The British had landed an army near Washington, D.C. British soldiers were marching. Madison hoped the U.S. Army would be able to stop them. At the time, Washington, D.C. was a young town. Some buildings had just been finished, such as the Capitol. Others were not finished yet. Still, it was an important place. It was where the U.S. Congress met to make laws. It was where the Supreme Court met. It was the home to President Madison and his wife, Dolly, which we should know that. And then you can see this picture, and let's look at the caption. It says the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. as it looked in 1810. So you can picture how it looked then and how it looks now. We can compare the two pictures to find the differences. The president's house was a special house that had been constructed for the president. Today, that's called the White House. It was only about 10 years old at the time. It was home to President Madison and his wife Dolly. President Madison was aware that there was going to be a big battle outside the city. He planned to go support the troops. He ordered some soldiers to protect Miss Madison and the president's house. Then he jumped on his horse and rode off. The battle outside the city did not go well. The U.S. Army was beaten. People quickly found out about the defeat. The army had lost. The British were coming. People in the city panicked. I want you to pause right here, and I want you to think about probably how they were feeling if they were panicked. How do you think that they were feeling? They grabbed their things and ran away. The roads were jammed with people and carts. This is the president's house, was the home of the U.S. president. You can see that in the picture. President Madison could not get back to the president's house. His wife Dolly was left there with servants and soldiers. The soldiers ran away. Miss Madison could not stay in the president's house. The British would be there soon, so she had to flee. And we know that flee means she just had to get away. She had to leave the scene. Miss Madison hoped to take as much with her as she could. But which things should she take? There were many fine things in the president's house. She loved a lamp that hung in one room, but there was no way she could take that. It was too heavy. She had a big closet of fancy dresses. She loved them too, but there was more important things for her to carry away. I want you to pause right here, and I want you to think about if you only had a few minutes to grab something, what are some things that you would take if you only had a few minutes and obviously you only had your arms? I want you to think of some things and tell me some things that you would grab. I think for me, I would be sure to grab pictures because I have a lot of pictures of Everly and family members. I'd be sure to grab just some pictures would be the main thing for me. Clothes, I can get more of those. I bet some of you guys will probably say your gaming systems or something like that. Just things that mean a lot to you that are valuable to you. And then here's a picture of Dolly Madison. In the end, Miss Madison left most of her own things behind. Instead, she carried away things that were important to the American people. She grabbed papers and letters. She stuffed as many of them as she could into a trunk. Miss Madison was ready to leave. Then she remembered one last thing. It was a painting of George Washington. There was no time to gently take it from its frame. She ordered the slaves and servants to cut out the painting. "It is done," said Dolly Madison. Then she ran out the door to safety. And you can see him here taking down the picture. So it's kind of like what I said, I would be sure to take pictures because you can't really recreate those. Dolly Madison helped to save the painting of George Washington. Very good job. You guys can go back and try to read this yourself or read it to a family member. The more you read, the better. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Bye, guys.